Hey y'all, it's Amy from the Harris Homestead, and today I'm going to be making my husband's grandmother's famous fig preserves. So typically every summer he takes his figs that he gathers from a neighbor or a farmer's market to his grandmother, and she cans them for him. We moved to our current property last fall. We had a very big fig tree, and he was excited because he would finally have his own fig tree to make fig preserves. So I realized it was probably finally a summer for me to learn how to make fig preserves, so that is what we are doing today. I have canned up a large batch already. I already have about 6 jars of preserves already made up. The figs are just rolling in. He's picking them almost every day to keep the birds from getting them. So I'm pretty much making a batch every other day at this point. We're gonna be giving some away too. So let's just go ahead and get started. Last night I chopped off all of the tops of the figs and then quartered them. And the way that her recipe reads is 2 parts figs to 1 part sugar. Now, if you know me and have been watching any of my videos on my channel for a little while, you know I'm not a huge fan of sugar. I'm more about fermented foods, whole food. Sugar is not a key ingredient in our home, but for my husband, for these fig preserves, it's not an overly amount of sugar. I actually have reduced the sugar from the original recipe. These fig preserves, I found that they pretty much need it. You can use alternatives, but my husband, who absolutely loves these, are just not the same without that good old white sugar. So to make the recipe, her recipe called for 2 parts figs to 1 part sugar. So if you're not a math person, you can just simplify that to 2 cups of figs to 1 cup of sugar. Now, I have cut back the sugar in the recipe a little bit because I believe that any fruit is naturally sweetened. So we don't need a ton of extra sugar added. So for this recipe, I have cut it back to 2 parts figs to a 1/2 part sugar. So that just equates to 2 cups of figs to a 1/2 cup of sugar. Last night when I cut them, I layered a layer of figs, a layer of sugar, a layer of figs, a layer of sugar, so forth, so on, until I used up all the figs. This is not going to be a larger batch that I'm making today. I did make quite a larger batch a few days ago. It had about 6 layers of figs and sugar. This one only has about 2 or 3, I think. Right now I'm just letting these start to simmer. You simply are just going to warm them on about medium heat until they get thick. Once they're thick, I'll use my immersion blender to blend them. So the figs are starting to get pretty hot and release their own natural juices. That's what we want. So I'm just going to continue stirring a little more and let them get thick. And then we'll come back with the immersion blender and chop them up. So depending on the size of your batch, this part will vary. My last batch, like I told you, had about 6 layers of figs and sugar, so it probably took about an hour of simmering and stirring. This batch I anticipate will not take quite so long because I don't have as many figs. I'm going to go ahead and give them a couple more stirs and then go ahead and use my immersion blender. Now if you don't have an immersion blender, you can always use just a masher or even a regular blender. This just is the most convenient for me. I'm not chopping them, pureeing them completely. I'm just going over a lot of them and chopping them up and leaving a few sort of in the quarters that I cut them in. Let them thicken a tad bit more while I get my jars ready. So the way I was taught to can is not in a water bath. I don't have the tools for a water bath. So simply boil some water, get it really hot, and take my sterile lids and jars. And then I pour my hot contents in and then seal them, and that will lock the lid. There is a new type of canning lid that I was not aware of called the SureTight. I think it's the Ball brand, and that's what I had used for some tomato sauce a few weeks back. Canned it like normal, like I always have, and then in about 3 or 4 days I realized there was mold on top. So upon doing some more research, the new type of ball lid, SureTight, has to be canned a different way. I don't know the exact method right now, but I'm sticking to these because I know they'll can the way I was taught to can. I lost a few batches of tomato sauce that way, but fortunately I realized the issue before I started doing a bunch of figs for my husband. Right, so I have my boiling hot water. I'm gonna go ahead and pour some in here. That's gonna probably be pretty hot on my hand. Just get the jar hot and scoop in my preserves. You want to leave about an inch, a 1/2 inch to an inch of headspace at the top when you're canning. Off any of this excess top. Add my hot lid and ring. Seal. So thank y'all so much for sticking with me through this fig preserves recipe. I know there are several ways to make fig preserves. This is just the recipe that I learned from my husband's grandmother and have adapted to our taste preference. My husband enjoys these on toast, biscuits. I don't even know all the ways he eats them. He just absolutely loves them and requested that I learn to make them. So they were a lot simpler than I expected, and I will continue to make them for him each year when fig season comes around. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I post 2 new videos each week on our homegrown lifestyle at our Wholesome Homestead. Thank y'all so much for watching today. This is getting very hot. I probably should have put something around it.